Hi, welcome to my channel. Welcome to Ife Space. Hope everyone is doing well. Right, so today's video, basically I'll be speaking about the requirements for visa as at 2025 August, because these requirements is ever changing. Like in a year there could be like 2, 3, 4 updates, right? Initially it used to be premium visa. I have the link down there. It was way easier then, right? But now you have to actually go to the VFS office physically if you are in a country that has VFS, like Nigeria and some other places in Africa and other non-EU countries. There are some countries actually that do not have VFS, right? And in this case they still have to go through the premium visa route. The premium visa route is actually still existing. I've had a lot of questions about this, what exactly the requirements are, and why I am actually doing this video is because I've been seeing a lot of conflicting requirements out there. So I'll be going through these requirements. I mean, everything that you need to apply for a study visa. There is another checklist for employment visa as well, but I'll be focusing on study visa today, because this is I get most of my inquiries regarding visa application from students. Like, I don't think, maybe very few that have actually reached out in the past asking about or making inquiries about visa application for employment purposes. If it is less than 90 days, what you need is a short-term visa, and the application processing is very different. So let us go through each requirement for study visa in Malta. Like I mentioned earlier, there are I've been seeing a lot of other checklists here and there, but this one is directly from Identita, which is the organization that actually does process visa application in Malta, residence permits in Malta, like everything about your identity really. They used to be called Identity Malta, but now they are Identita. It is very different from what is on VFS Global website. At some point when I went through VFS Global, I'm like, come on, all of these are not needed. Like, I mean, I've had a lot of students come in, and of course we do not provide these documents, so let us go through each one. So first on the list is a fully filled visa application form. Obviously this has to be filled. It is called the form D. So you can see here, I mean, just basically your details. Please do not leave out any details. It's better for this document to be filled typed. I mean, for it to be typed in, not necessarily written by hand. Very important that it is signed. So important, please. I've had a student who sent in her application, but it was handwritten and she forgot to indicate her email address, and then it was a premium visa route where they need to send you links and communicate with you via email. Thankfully, in that case, the visa, you need to be gracious enough to reach out to the school. The second requirement is your passport. Obviously, your international passport, it has to be valid for 10 months. Do not present any application where the passport is almost expiring. It would not be, most likely the visa will be denied, because it has to be minimum. Initially it used to be minimum of 6 months, but now it is 10 months, right? So you need a passport photo, and it has to meet these particular standards. They call it ICAO. I can put the link up here. Or alternatively, if to be safe, and that's what I advise my students, especially if we are going back and forth on requirements, just when you get to the VFS office to submit, you can meet any of the, I mean, they have like photographers, what they call them, they have people who take photos, like, and it is always, I mean, according to specification. The VFS appointment letter. So usually when you are applying for a visa, study visa in this case, the school would have to initiate the process of making the application online to book the appointment. Some schools actually give students the access, to make this application online. All the schools I am partnered with, they do this application themselves. They don't want stories that touch. Payment is usually in 2 folds. So there's the 150 euros that is paid directly when booking this appointment online. Then there's the other bit where you go to the VFS office and you are expected to pay an equivalent of, I think, 150 euros as well, about 300,000 ish. I mean, depending on the exchange rate, but that has to be paid right there on the appointment day. The application must be submitted at least 9 weeks before date of course. So you cannot, for example, if you intend to start your program in October and this is August, you might not be able to apply for this particular, I mean, it's not advisable because here it has to be at least 9 weeks. So you cannot apply later than 9 weeks because it does take a while. Sometimes it takes up to 3 months, I kid you not, to get it. I mean, the whole process from the point you submit the application to when you are called for interview, if that be the case, to when it is sent back, like it takes a while. So to be safe, actually, right? So then the enrollment letter, this is usually given by the school. Ensure, and that is why dealing with a very good school matters a lot. Some schools are not, well, I say they don't pay attention to details and they miss out info like this. And it is very important that all these are stated in the letter, because during the interview they ask these questions, you know, like how many hours your course will be, what are the modules and all of that. So MQF, number of ECTS, and you know, proof of payment. Another document that is needed is bank statements. It has to be the last 3 months bank statement is sufficient. You know, it's ideally a bank certificate is also needed. However, some banks, especially in Nigeria, they do not give bank certificates, so they don't have a choice. So in this case, like a reference letter from the bank might suffice. My student who just got her visa did not have to present this. The balance at the time you're printing out the statement needs to meet the minimum balance required. The funds must amount to at least 75% of the national minimum wage for every month of study. You know, for every month of study. So if, for example, you are coming for a 1-year master's program, 12 months, average wage is about that. It changes all the time. Let's assume average wage is 1,000 euros. It is more than that, and 75% of that will be 750. So 750 times 12 months of study, 50 times 12, 600. So about 9,000 euros. But don't quote me, because average wage is for sure way more than 1,000 euros. I think it's about 1,500 euros, right? So it is important that the balance is sufficient for each month of study. In the event where you are coming for a 3-year program, bachelor's degree, it might not necessarily have to be times 36 months. Of course, the higher it is, the better. If student is a sponsor as well, the sponsor would need to provide, of course, his bank statement, a declaration letter from the sponsor, and his ID card. Very important. One of my students once forgot. Thankfully, they reached out to the school to send this across. Then obviously, copy of international bank card, very important, of the prospective student, and it has to be front and back. You can just blow out where the CVC. For example, if you are using, in the case of a Nigerian bank like GT Bank, if your statement is from GTB, your card has to match. It has to be GTB as well. You know, that is very important. However, if you are using the sponsor, they didn't specify this here, but trust me, that is the case. If you are using a sponsor, the sponsor's card has to also be attached. In terms of this declaration letter, I like to use an affidavit of sponsorship. You know, let it be notarized and all, and that is fine. Okay, you need a medical and travel insurance. And for people who are studying from level 5 and above, it is required for sure. You know, it has to be valid for the Schengen area. Very important, not just a particular section. It has to be minimum coverage of 30,000 euros, and then, you know, it has to cover a minimum of 91 days. So minimum of the coverage period has to be minimum of 91 days. Most of my students, I advise them to do like 180 days, 6 months, and that's fine. You know, and then of course the insurance policy, I mean, it has to be valid for study purpose. Sometimes, depending on the age, because I've had students who are way older who perhaps they could not get like a study insurance, so in that case they gave them a normal travel insurance, and that was fine. If you can get the one that will specifically say study, that's okay. It can be from any insurance firm at all, where you're from, because I've seen a lot of schools that will try to impose their own perhaps insurance firms, and they are usually very expensive. But if you are doing it directly from an insurance, a trusted insurance firm where you live, that is fine, because what you should be paying should not be more than, if it's naira, it should not be more than 70,000 naira at the most. You know, covering 6 months, or I mean minimum of 3 months, and 30,000 euros minimum coverage. Okay, so for students who, of course, those that are studying for MQF level 4 and under, theirs can be valid for 30,000 euros as well, and valid for all the months that they'll be staying in Malta. And it's very important that all these details are stated on the insurance policy. Then prospective flight tickets. So the flight tickets, very important that this flight stops, the first Schengen stop will be Malta. So you cannot go and book any flight where the itinerary shows that you'll be stopping in Rome, for example, before getting to Malta. Nah, it's not allowed. They want to Malta, which is the entry point in the Schengen area, to be the first point. So you can, if for example you cannot obviously get a direct flight, however the case might be, the first point of entry into the Schengen area must be Malta. So it could be that you're stopping over at Istanbul, that's fine, or in Dubai, that's okay. Entry ticket must be 2 weeks max prior to course commencement date. So for example, if you are looking to start your course on October 1st, you cannot be applying the flights. The date of entry into Malta cannot be September 1st. It has to be at least 2 weeks. So perhaps 17th of September you're good to go. Now this one is one I really want to talk about, because I was shocked when I saw it on VFS Global. They mentioned that 6 months, that the accommodation has to be valid for the one you present when applying for your visa, study visa, has to be valid for it has to be 6 months. Nah, that's not true. 2 weeks and you're fine. 2 weeks accommodation, you can even be on booking.com or Airbnb. You don't need to start looking for like a landlord that would go through long-term accommodation and the likes. 2 weeks is fine. Okay, if you can pay for it, that's fine. Eventually, that's fine. But if you cannot pay for it as well at the beginning, at that point, that's okay. Even though you can pay for it, if you can pay for it, that's actually good, because maybe perhaps just go for like the one that has free cancellation option. So God forbid your visa is denied, you can get your funds back. So accommodation is really important. If it can be provided by the school, I have a school that actually does issue this letter containing all the details of where the student will stay temporarily, and that's, in fact, I feel like that has really helped in terms of visa successes at this particular school. Okay, so it has to be on the school's letterhead, signed or stamped and all. For applications, if you are renting as well, if it's like long-term rent, it has, and you need it. If you manage to get like a long-term accommodation, if you want to, you need lease agreements from both parties. I feel like that's too intense, because you want to see the accommodation and you want to get your visa in hand before you start making commitments for accommodation, right? And of course, like they mentioned there, or applicants will be staying in an hotel or short-term Airbnb apartment as well. For a short term, so far it is covering 14 days, 14 nights, 2 weeks. That's okay, and that's what all my students have done. If the person is a minor, obviously you need parental consent. If you're less than 18 years old, you need parental consent. I know one of my students wasn't 18 yet and needed that parent consent letter. So this particular fee is a fee that you pay at the visa office. I mentioned it earlier. However, when you are paying, at the point where you are paying, booking the appointment, the fees you pay, the 150 euros you pay, goes directly to Identita in Malta here. But when you go for the visa appointment itself, 100 euros, equivalent of 100 euros is what you need to pay there, right? So obviously, if you're looking for like fast track appointment, you pay 150 euros. So these are the documents that are needed for visa application for study. Employment is a little similar. The only difference is that you need documents from your employer. There is no point where you need to provide anything like tax returns or 6 months accommodation and the likes. Heading off now. That will be all for now. I hope this video was helpful. We actually just finished church and we're heading back home, and I thought to just do this video because gosh, it's been so hectic these days. It's been very hectic, so I hardly have time for all this. I hope this has answered all the questions, numerous questions I've seen and I've been receiving regarding visa application at VFS office. I will do another video about the application process when you arrive here in Malta, because it is very different. I don't want this video to be too long. It is almost 20 minutes already. In another video I'll also be speaking about interview questions and what you need to look out for, pitfalls and the likes. Thank you very much. I hope this video was helpful. By the way, my hair is cool. Do you like my hair? If you're in Malta and you're looking to braid your hair or make weaves or whatever it is, Lifestyle with Ruth made this. You can follow her on TikTok. She made this. It was, I feel like she's quite good. I do have a lot of people that, do make my hair. I have Okpa's braids. I have Paradise Empire. Okay, I've gotten wigs from her, but she does make hair as well. I have this cover braids as well. That quite a number of. I feel like we have a lot of hairstylists now in Malta compared to years ago where it was a hassle getting your hair done, really. Alright, shout out to everyone who has got handiwork and has helped our life here in Malta. See you in